Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, because everybody's listening into the Ticket to Anywhere podcast from
Yes, you
everywhere,
are.
hopefully. I am one of your co hosts, Trizzy.
And I'm Leah, aka LA in Flight.
We are two voices, two views, and two ways to adventure from anywhere.
Heck yes. And today we have a very, very special guest who is near and dear to our heart. Bob Demena of the Traveler's Blueprint. Unfortunately, his co host and partner Elliot was not able to make it on the show today, but that's okay. Much love to them. I personally have been on some of their roundtable episodes like four
Yes, you
times.
have.
So they are good friends of the podcast. We'll link those episodes in the show notes and in the descriptions because they're all about like travel safety, social
Mhm.
media while traveling alone as a woman, etc. There's a lot of cool different topics that they like to explore on their podcast, The Traveler's Blueprint.
Yeah, and they're a good place to get like current events, current travel events too.
100%.
They do these episodes called like the travel bites, so it's just recent travel stories. It could be about, a woman getting duct tape on a plane, or it could be the most updated CDC guidelines. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good listen.
Yeah, I really love those episodes because I can't remember if they do them weekly or twice a month, but I love getting my travel news from them because they kind of give their commentary, let us
Mhm.
know what's going on in the world, and it's like short and sweet.
Yeah, but we brought Bob on, and he explained the process of his planning and what the Traveler's Blueprint offers with creating an itinerary. And I loved it because a lot of it was very
Mm-hmm.
similar to how I do things,
Mm-hmm.
as far as, the increments of 15, 30 minutes, adding it onto the itinerary. That's so me.
I'm glad that you two could connect over planning your potty breaks while traveling.
You only have 2 minutes to pee and wash your
2 minutes
hands.
to be. Traveler's Blueprint, in addition to being a podcast, they're a community, an online community, and they have these itinerary planning services. But you could also do 5 sessions of one-on-one consulting for whatever trip you have to go up or go on, and then you can also do a singular one-on-one consulting session with the guys of Traveler's Blueprint, which is super cool. And it was just a joy having him on and hearing how he does different things around the world and what his next trips are, and
Mm.
even got into like points and miles and hacking, and I'm like, wait, let's not cross that line just yet.
Save the good stuff for later.
Mm-hmm.
But all of it was good stuff. We enjoyed having Bob on, and cheers to him. Cheers to us for another episode, and we are sipping. Ooh, this my concoction is actually
Oh,
pretty cool.
what's the concoction?
So I had Earl Grey tea, loose leaf from Art of Tea, and I put in my homemade orange juice, grapefruit juice. So it's somewhat like an iced tea,
Oh,
but it's a
it's like a
orange Earl
refresher.
Grey. Yeah, so it was really good.
Okay.
But I didn't want it cold. So I still had a bit of a warmth because we're recording in the morning. Had to wake up my voice a little bit. So
Had to wake up the voice. Meanwhile, I'm like inject coffee to the jugular. Warm up. What is that? Smash his glass. Okay, well, while you're drinking on your nice tea, I actually grabbed this can over at EatsCon over the weekend in Santa Monica. The brand is Taika, and it's like a pre-made latte with macadamia milk in it. So it's a
mm,
macadamia latte and it has all these adaptogens in it that help you with immunity, energy, focus, clarity, calm. It's very like LA. Let's see if it's even made in LA. It's very LA, like, with all the health benefits and, like, a
yeah,
coffee, you know what I mean?
right. Silver Lake, California.
Yeah, I don't I don't know where
It
it's
looks
from, I
cool.
think
I
it's in
love the
Arizona.
packaging. I feel like packaging for me
It's
is so key.
great. So this at the festival, which festivals are normally more expensive. This costs
Hmm.
$5 a can.
Okay.
So, but we'll link the brand, but check it out. It's
Yes,
gonna be
please
good.
do. Awesome. Well, cheers, Leah.
Cheers, Trizzy.
This is Leah and Trizzy, and we are two voices, two views, and two ways to adventure from anywhere.
We prioritize travel in our lives and we both travel very differently.
Every other Wednesday, we drop episodes featuring the coolest travelers around the globe, local business owners, community episodes from you, and of course, us, your resident travel lovers.
This is Ticket to Anywhere podcast. Watch us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Safety Wing is the world's first international travel medical insurance developed to meet the needs of entrepreneurs and remote workers traveling or living abroad worldwide. The Safety Wing Nomad Insurance includes both travel and travel medical insurance, which includes coverage for any travel delays, lost checked bags, emergency response, and natural disasters, plus coverage and access to qualified global network of hospitals and doctors for unexpected medical problems and accidents, and any emergency medical evacuations. You can sign up for Nomad Insurance even if your trip is already happening, or sign up in advance by selecting a future start date. For only $42 per 4 weeks, you can be covered under Safety Wing and its Nomad Insurance. Click the link in our description for more info and to sign up. Safe travels!
All right, Bob. Bob from the Traveler's Blueprint. Thank you so much for your time this morning, for coming on. It's been a long time coming. I feel like that we've needed to have you on Ticket to Anywhere, so we're stoked you're here.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like we've talked 4 times on my podcast, and so I really feel like I've gotten to know you over the years, and I'm really excited today to talk through some of the travel tips that we have.
So many times, yes. And we're bummed that Elliot can't be here today, but he's still big part of the community. Much love to him.
Bob, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Ooh,
It's a hard coffee.
All right.
We wanted to get you onto Ticket to Anywhere to, I think what you're doing with the Traveler's Blueprint is incredible. You've actually created a big community. You're selling like travel itinerary planning services now. Like, you've made this truly into a brand, and coined yourself as kind of experts into like researching the perfect itinerary. I know that's what your specialty is. So let's kind of dive right into it and
Yeah.
just drop your knowledge.
Sure. Yeah. So you're right. So we've spent a lot of time sort of curating this travel blueprint, we call it, and it comes in 5 parts. And essentially, it's how to navigate a new city, how to book cheap airfare, how to conduct research on restaurants and sort of sift through blogs, how to actually take all this information and create an itinerary, and then lastly, understanding like safety, local norms, and how to be a thoughtful traveler. The whole point is sort of efficiency. We want to be efficient travelers when we go. One thing that I do want to preface this, it's not exactly the ideal planning method for everybody. Leah and Trizzy, as you guys know, and Leah, I know when you were on our podcast, we had people on recently that don't plan anything at all. So I do want to be clear, like the way that we plan travel is essentially for people who are limited on time. Primarily, a lot of Americans only get 2 weeks, so it's really helpful for them. People who don't want to miss anything, and most people who like having background information on the things that they're visiting while they're there, and then people are happy sticking to a schedule, obviously. So if you're sort of the person who just sort of books the ticket, shows up, figures out what you're doing on the fly, I think you'll learn something, but it's not really geared towards that type of travel. Yeah. So I've been planning it for a while. So to give background information, I was a traveler through work. So I worked for an engineering firm. I still do today, an environmental engineering firm, and they sent me all over the country going to check out these properties for developers and things like that. So I would go to a new city somewhere in the nation, in the United States, and I had to work, obviously, but I also had the ability to have several hours in the day to do something else. And so instead of going to the hotel, which is a lot of what my coworkers did, or just sitting at a bar, spending the time there, which I did sometimes, but I would want to see things. I would want to go, if I was in Denver, I would figure out a way to just see the Rocky Mountains, or try to go for a hike. LA, go to La Brea tar pits. I love them. And I know you guys are talking about, no, I love them. That stuff's like right up my alley. So what I did was I started to say, okay, I'm going to work from this time to this time. And then the attraction I'm going to see is this far away, and sort of very obviously just planned how to do it and make sure I had the ability to get back to where I needed to be and made sure my work was got done. But over the years, that evolved into very meticulous planning. Like, I sort of learned how long things took and how much time I would spend in a place. And I was able to like mentally adjust for traffic. It was really weird, but just by doing it over and over and over again for so many years, I really nailed it down. And then I got the bright idea to sort of push it to the podcast and then
Yep.
build upon it that way.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to pause you there because I
Sure.
have a few questions.
Yeah.
And one of my pillars of for people who have been listening to the podcast long enough is that I love to slow travel. So I have so many questions about obviously this was working well for you pre-pandemic, but what is the status now with traveling for work, and how do you incorporate slow travel into these trips if you still do them? Like, would you add extra days? Could you work remotely? Did you only have to be online for like an hour of the day? You know, how I'd love to kind of connect it to like slow traveling and teaching people it's okay to kind of extend their work vacations or whatever vacation they do have.
Yeah. So for my particular situation, I moved up in the company. So I'm no longer the traveler. I'm the guy who sits in the office now and sends the people out. The younger people get to do it now. So I moved past being the one who travels as much, and I did that before COVID actually. So I didn't actually travel the country during the pandemic at all for work. Um, but yeah, so it's a weird balance because slow travel is something that really came to me through the podcast. And I'm started to think like, my way is not the only way, and I could now see clearly by the people who have told me multiple times that slow travel is so beneficial to the experience. Um, what so for the last trip that I did with my wife and daughter, we went to Rome, and instead of packing in a Italy trip, we did a Rome trip, and we did one day, every day was in a different section of the city of Rome. So we really saw the city. We would spend an entire day in this neighborhood, and to me, that's like one of the closest forms of slow travel that I've experienced so far. Is a week in one city. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the best person to speak on slow travel. I'm sort of like
Oh,
the counterbalance to it.
I think a week in one city, that is the definition of slow travel,
Yeah.
especially a
Okay.
place like
Okay.
Italy, like
Hmm.
Rome, Italy, where people are trying to pack, I don't know, like every single part of the country
Yeah.
in a week. So how did you like, I'm sorry, I'm veering off, but
No, you're good.
what did you think of spending a a different day in each neighborhood, a week in Rome? What did you think of that?
I loved it. I feel like I got to know the city so well. So yeah, by breaking it down and not having to rush throughout the city or throughout the country, yeah, we sort of set up shop and we walked around and we took our time. There was really no set schedule like I've had on previous trips because we would go to the neighborhood and we knew we had the entire day. We knew where we wanted to go and some of the restaurants and cafes that we wanted to visit, but there wasn't this rush. And so we would sit down and we'd enjoy it and we'd people watch. And it was really an awesome experience. I think the real reason we did it this way is because we had a toddler. So the
Mhm.
push,
Mhm.
push, push to see everything just isn't quite working. So my travel preferences or my ability to travel is obviously evolving with my circumstance of having a young child. At the time,
Yeah.
I only had my wife was like 6 months pregnant, so she couldn't really do a whole lot of moving throughout the country, and I mean that
Mhm.
in a very nice, respectful way. But you know, so yeah, we were limited in what we could do.
I like the fact that you said doing the podcast kind of helped open your mind up to different sorts of travel. Because that was kind of like me too. Leah knows that I will pack in 3, 4 countries in 2 weeks. But when we started this
Real life, that's
podcast,
a real
yeah,
scenario.
That's
for
oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
When we started this podcast, Leah brought up the term slow travel
Hmm.
and how she would go to local what is it, central markets to kind of like pick out food, and then sometimes she'll just eat food from the market rather than going to like a stall, going to a store or restaurant and doing things like that. And I was like, oh, let me hopefully try this one day. But like you said, Bob, I only have 2 weeks given through work.
Yep.
So I got to jam pack everything, but hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to slow travel and experience what you guys experienced.
Yeah, and so the most I've done 6 countries in 14 days. That was the most I've jammed into one
Oof.
trip, and there were some of those countries that it was only like a day and a half in.
Yeah.
And sort of for me personally, by learning all these different ways of travel, I've realized that you don't have to just pick one and live by it forever. One trip can be fast paced, the next trip can be slow
Mm-hmm.
travel, and so you have the ability to change it
Hmm.
on a trip by trip basis and get a full, travel experience, if that's what, like, we want to call it. But yeah, you're not limited in what you want to do, and try them all and see which one you really like, and that's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I think, the goal, because yeah, they're all great in their own way. They all have their pros and cons.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. That must have been Europe.
It was my honeymoon. It was my honeymoon. So we
Oh,
flew into Sweden, and then we flew into Hungary. Then we took a bus from Budapest into Croatia. We road tripped. I got a car. We road tripped from Croatia into Montenegro, and then
oh my
Bosnia and
gosh.
Herzegovina. And then we
Love
flew
it.
to, I don't even know how many countries did I name. And then we flew to London. Yeah, yeah.
Do you need an international driver's license?
You don't for Croatia.
Mm.
And if you
Oh,
do
Mm.
now, or if you did, I didn't have one. Italy, you do. 100%, I know you do.
okay.
For a lot of
Okay.
countries, you do. But Croatia, you did not. I just rented the car and drove around this
Did
country.
you need a
And
license?
I had my license,
Like,
and it was
okay,
like,
you need a license in
so
general.
one thing we did that was fantastic. We went at the end of September, which was like the
Mm.
off season, and so we just cruised through the country. Like, it
Love
was
Yeah.
it.
awesome. It was open. We were up in the mountains. Then we went down to the coastline. We drove through the across borders into Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then Montenegro. And so it was just like so freeing
Nice.
to be able to travel that way. I'm a big car renter. I think I love the freedom of
Oh,
that. Yeah, I do. I love the freedom of being able to just get in your car and go whenever you want. Um,
a, b-
mhm.
a big car rent. I've never heard that from any traveler in my life.
Hmm.
I love that.
Not because what
Most people I know try to avoid renting cars.
oh no, put
Mm,
me behind the wheel of the car. My suitcases are in the back. We can
That's
stop
true.
wherever we want, whenever we want. We see a detour
yep,
sign, whatever you want to do. You can stop and eat whenever you want, and you listen to the music you want, and you guys sort of cruise. It's like taking a
that's
road trip in
true.
a foreign country. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, the cost is obviously there, but if you
Hmm.
if you
Hmm.
anticipate that and or have the ability to save for it, I
Hmm.
I would recommend it.
I would love to do that, but I got pulled over once in Cancun for no good reason. And from there, I feel like if I were to drive internationally, I'll get scared again.
For
I
being like foreign.
Yeah.
I was crossing the border from Croatia to Bosnia, and I don't know what it was, but I didn't fully understand the system that they had, and I started to go before
Mm.
they like really let me through into their country,
Mm.
and they were not happy. So I something stopped me. I don't really remember, but I had to reverse back, and I was just like, "Sorry, American,"
Oh
and
my
he did not
god!
like that at all. Like, he was
No,
not amused, and
he probably thought you
yeah,
were like a terrorist,
yeah,
like trying to enter the
yeah.
country.
So yeah, I think they get a lot of tourists, but it was again in the off season. There was no one else at this border crossing, and so it was just us, and it was yeah, it was
I have like two weird questions.
yeah, sure,
Was this the trip where you fell off a wall? Didn't you fall off a
yes,
wall? I
yeah,
remember.
Oh my
I
yeah.
gosh.
just remember you saying like I fell off a wall in Italy in my honeymoon or
It was
something, or
Croatia. Yeah,
Croatia.
I was partying with these Canadians that we met, and we partied hard, and I was sitting on this wall, and I fell off into a bush of spikes, and I had when
Ooh.
I put my arm up, I think I still have scars. I had all these like spikes sticking out of my arm, and the guy I was with just started
Ouch.
yanking them out, and it
Ooh.
was it was a mess. It was a mess. Yeah. Hmm.
And then is the water like I can't we live in Los Angeles, right? Where it's temperate weather and I can't imagine. I mean, the water does cool down, but like is the water cold at the end of September? Like can you go in where you were? Croatia,
Yeah,
Italy.
it depends on your tolerance for it. It was a little too cold for me, I think. We
Mm.
did lay out like the sun was still warm, and we did boat trips and island trips, and I did swim actually. I do remember swimming now, like through like caves and stuff, but it wasn't
Ooh.
it wasn't like the perfect weather. Now, what you
Mm.
get though are no lines and the ability to sort of travel freely and experience the country without booming tourism. And Croatia is one of those countries that has evolved to like really get a lot of Western tourists, specifically like from Europe and
Mhm.
Australia. So uh, I personally would be willing to trade cooler temperatures for way less tourists. I mean, I'm talking
Oh yeah.
way, we were some of the last tours of the year, of the season. My wife and I did this boat tour to go pull oysters out of the sea and eat them on the boat. We were the only two on the boat. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, it was,
That
I'm a
is so
big,
cool.
big um, advocate for tail season travel for sure. Yeah.
Actually, I want to know that too. Like who listening right now? Drop in the comments or DM us. Let us know if you guys are off-season travelers as well. Cause I'm like the in between. I'm like sometimes I'll
Yeah.
go on the on season just because it's just what people do
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
availability I have during the summer. And then, but I always want to inch towards the off season because I don't like crowds.
Yeah. Prices are cheaper
Yeah.
too.
Hmm.
So you're
Hmm.
talking less people, fewer prices, easier ability to navigate. But then like the nightlife isn't going to be as good. And so there's definitely a trade-off. But yeah, it's just preference, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, nightlife as in like being outside. I mean, if you're trying to go into a club or bar, I think it might stay the same, right? Or no?
Yeah,
Or is it
well, it
just
depends
like
on where the bar is. If like the bar is on the strip where all the
mm,
tourists hang out, then you're not going to have
hmm
that same crowd. But if you are someone that seeks out local experiences, then yeah, but I would assume that it's going to be the same. Yeah.
I'm tapped out by 8 p.m.
AP? You're basically live planning a next trip for us.
Well, here I'll help you now. So like I mentioned in the beginning, so we have urban navigation, booking airfare, restaurants, blog, and research, and then it gets into laying out the itinerary, and then like understanding safety, local norms, and being a thoughtful traveler. So the first one is urban navigation. And again, it's about being as efficient as possible. So one of the things that we help people do is make a map on Google My Places. I don't know if you either of
Mm.
you are familiar with this
Hmm.
program,
Yep.
but
Yep.
it's a fantastic tool to sort of get the lay of the land, and then start to type in the locations of what you want to see, the attractions, the restaurants, things like that. You put them into the map, and then once you have these pinned out all over the map, you plan, A to B and then B to C, and you can move them around to make sure you're not backtracking. And it's a fantastic way to make sure that as you move around the city, you don't have to go back. You're not wasting time by having to turn around. And if you have this information with you, you're not sitting on your phone and trying to look it up. And again, to me, it's wasted time. Some people have argued to me that that's part of the process. And so, by all means, if that's part of your process, I
Right.
guess sit in a cafe and look for what to do. Um, and I'm not hating on it at all, but
No, for
yeah.
sure.
And so by understanding the layout, the lay of the land before you get there, you're going to be much more efficient while you're actually there. And yeah, I think that's a huge plus.
Hmm.
What we do then is once we code these, or once we establish the itinerary, we save it and we identify them by day. So you have all these layers. So you have day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many days you're traveling, and then the attractions will be in order from one to however many you're doing. And then when you eventually get to writing your itinerary, you have these numbers for each day labeled, Roman Colosseum is number one. Then when you go to the map, you can see where it's actually located with the one on the map, and you can sort of cross-reference and see as you're traveling where you're going and what you're doing. You have it in list form on paper, and you have it in map form as well.
That's
Um,
amazing. And you could offline these maps
yeah,
too.
and yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's part of it. You definitely want to save them offline, and then you can map an entire city offline and have it for later.
Hmm.
The next thing we focus on is booking airfare. So one of the biggest things of travel is trying to find the cheapest flight possible. The things that we preach, so like the best way to get the cheapest flight, what we say is it's about flexible location, flexible dates, and then
Hmm.
flexible booking. So if you can actually book 6 months in
Okay.
advance versus a week before your trip, you'll obviously see difference in price there. And then yeah, and then having being flexible of where you travel, and then the dates of at which you travel will help you. Now not everybody has this luxury. It depends on what you want to do and where you want to go and when, but that's like the foundation for cheap flights. And we use Google Flights. I'm a huge Google Flights user. I love it. I think that there's this bar graph program that allows you to see the fluctuations in prices throughout the year. and you could sort of
Mhm.
monitor this and see when prices and sort of anticipate when prices go up and down, and it's
Mhm.
really helpful. I use that all the time. And then one of the other things with Google Flights is if you truly are flexible, you can remove the destination and you can remove
Mhm.
specific dates, and you could do it by just month, or I want to go 2 weeks in June, and then you remove the destination, you scroll out to a map of the world, and you just move around and look for the lowest number, the lowest price, and it's a
Yep.
really easy way to find cheap airfare. And all this being said, if you do know, I want to go to Rome the first 2 weeks of August, and you have a month to book, you're going to be very limited on how much you spend. It's
Mhm.
not really up to you at that point.
Where do you book, Bob? Then do you book through Google Flights, or do you just use that as a research tool?
Google Flights tends to push you to the direct website.
Okay.
I believe
Okay.
that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back now, but I believe like if you find an American flight, you'll find the flight, and then once you click book, it brings you to American's website.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They don't push you into like another into a third party. I'm pretty confident in that.
That's good. Yeah. The
I
Skyscanner
fly a
does.
lot of American just because I'm out of Philadelphia, and that's a huge,
Mhm.
massive American hub, and they have like
Oh,
the
okay.
sister companies as well. So I end up flying American a lot. I'm a big points user. I have like 14 credit cards. I'm all about
Ooh.
the points game.
I did
I'm like,
not know
yeah,
this about you, that you're
yeah,
like
yeah,
this hacker.
yeah.
He's a
So I
big
have,
car
yeah.
renter
Yeah,
and a
car. So I have an
14 credit
enterprise
card
account
holder.
and a national account for cars. I
Oh,
have
wow.
Mm.
Mhm.
American, Southwest. I have the Chase. I have Capital One points. Yeah, so I try to accumulate them throughout the year, and then use them for my trips. Yeah,
I didn't because that comes in I was literally my next question was how are you with points and whatnot, because I'm sure that comes in handy when you're trying to help people book airfare and whatnot, and they're like, oh, I have 100,000 so and so points, like how
yeah.
can I use them? I was
Mhm.
like, I never know how to answer that question like that.
So I'm not super proficient in understanding the ins and outs. I know it to a degree, but I still rely on like the points guy for a lot of
Hmm.
information, for which credit cards to use, and so I sort of still have to Google that and make sure, because that's something, like it's its own beast, and you could spend a
Mhm.
lot
Oh
of time
yeah.
learning it, and it changes. The credit cards change, so how far their points go,
Yeah.
and the rewards, and so that's something that if you really want to understand it, you have to stay on top of. I lean on the Points Guys website a lot, for a lot of
Hmm.
that, and I just know I have a spreadsheet of all my credit cards, their
Hmm.
expiration dates, and then what they are best used for. And so I have
Hmm.
a lot of like
Nice.
auto payments going on. So like my one card is only Netflix. I have a card that I use for home improvement. And if you
Hmm.
just go to, I have a card that I use for groceries, a card that I use for gas. And so it takes effort, but I carry them
Mhm.
with me, and I'm just used to it now, and I know which ones to do, and I just stay on top of my finances. You have to pay them off.
Yep.
Obviously the interest is extremely high. And so if you're not paying them
Hmm.
off, you lose the benefit of the points. So I like to keep a spreadsheet, but I know that's very old school. I've been told multiple times there's like these programs where you can just put in your credit card. It tells you which one to use and what you'll get. But I sort of like the manual aspect of it, and
Yeah.
doing it on my own.
Exactly.
So
Do you, Bob? Do you?
Yeah. I
yeah, thank you.
I
Thank
just got the Capital One Venture X, and I'm
Whoop,
so
whoop.
excited about that one because I don't have any lounge access. I know, surprise. But I've been like budget traveler for so long. I'm like, budget travelers don't do lounges. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm not a big lounge guy either, actually. So I stretch my points when because now,
Mm.
especially now because I have a family. Yeah.
You have two people spending on your accounts though.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
You do
Yeah.
too, Trizzy. It's just
Yeah.
me racking up my solo points for me.
Yeah, yeah. It really started to boom once I got, like, the house, because now it's like every time I
Mm.
enter
Hmm.
like a new home renovation project, I just wait to get a new card for it. So then you just get that bonus points, and then sometimes I stop using the card, so I don't use all of my cards. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll know I have to, like, I do right now. I have to redo portions of my deck. So what I'll do is I'll wait. I'll get another card. I'll buy the materials, pay for the labor through the credit card, get that bonus, and then sort of put the card in a safe, forget about it, bank the points, and then save them for when I need them.
No, I was gonna say you're like finding projects around the house
Yeah,
to be like,
yeah.
okay, what can I fix?
Breaking stuff just to
Yeah. You're like, honey, we need a new deck. We need a new roof.
Mm.
Okay. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Off track. Ooh, this could turn
Yeah.
into a whole points and miles
I mean,
conversation
it
if we
leads
let
to
it.
blueprint. This is the whole traveler's blueprint here.
Yes.
Well,
But okay,
so
this is your next point.
yeah, so the
How you
next
like to
one
sift through
is
like reviews and finding. Yeah, that's
right.
important.
It's restaurants, blogs, and research. So I think that I'm a big user of blogs, and at least initially to
Love it.
start writing out my itinerary. And what I do first, so I have it's a 3-step process. I will Google what to do in Rome, very broad. And what you'll do is if you read through 3 or 4 of those, you'll realize that they're all the same. It's the main
Mhm.
attractions. Go here, 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 here. The order sometimes changes and the recommendations of individual restaurants will change, but you really get a feel for what most people are going to do. So I write down the things that interest me from those main blogs, and then I get a little bit more detailed. So the next Google search will be uh, what to do or see Rome like a local. And then you start to get recommendations because local people will write their own blogs and say, this is what I do when I'm walking around the city. This is what I recommend you do. And I'll take some of those and write those down. And then I'll type in obscure things to do in Rome. And this is really where you can really find things that most people either don't care about. They're not over the top, but I think most people will find something interesting that they'll want to do. And I like the feeling of doing something obscure, especially in a city like Rome, where it's such a template itinerary that so many people do. To find something a little bit unique and experience a neighborhood that most people don't go to, I personally like, I enjoy. And so I am sometimes willing to not do one of the main attractions to maybe get a little bit more of an obscure experience. So that's how I figure out what to do. Um, but then
Okay.
you start need to reading through reviews and restaurants specifically. The reviews can be really mean, and oftentimes you'll see a restaurant with a subpar like overall rating.
Yeah.
But if you break down and you start to go into these reviews, you'll realize that a lot of these negative reviews are unrelated to like the food itself. It will be something like it was a rainy day and I had to wait 10 minutes in the rain and so they get 1 star. Or I didn't like how loud it was today because there was a baby at the table next to me crying, so 2 stars. And so what I like to do is if the restaurant seems appealing or it has good recommendations from the blog,
Mhm.
even if it has those negative reviews, if you start to sift through them, you can really determine if the food is good and people that gave the negative reviews were actually, associating it with the dining experience itself. And
Right.
that's something that I recommend because if you look at the overall rating at face value, I think it's not always accurate and it's not fair to the restaurant.
All right.
Yeah. So
That's
the
true.
yeah, the next one is the itinerary layout. So now that you have all this information, you know where you're going, you booked your cheap airfare, you understand the attractions you're going to see because you've mapped them already, and you have the restaurant information. What I do, I used to do a Google document and just list it out, like sort of write it old school on paper, not like that, but type it, in a Google document. We created a little planner journal that allows you to do this. And essentially, I sometimes will write my trip out to the 15 to 30 minute increment
Ooh.
down the line. It's a little extreme. And because of this podcast and talking to so many different travelers, started to move away from it. And when I did, my wife's like, no, I like it. Come back. Like we're doing it.
Yeah.
She's into it. So she likes it. That's why I guess we travel so well together because we have such a similar idea of how we should do it. So I came back. I came back to the 30-minute, 15-minute increments because
You're
she
like
likes sticking to
bathroom
the
break
script.
at this
Yeah.
time.
Hey,
it,
Bob, that's like
it's
me too. You and
yeah,
I.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad because I talk to a lot of travelers and most of them are not like us. But I think what this allows you to do, I should say, I don't want people to get the impression that like if your trip doesn't go according to plan that you
Mhm.
get mad. You can't because things just go wrong constantly.
Hmm.
And you need to go in with the mindset just like life in general. Like things don't always go your way and accept
Mhm.
that. And so the second something doesn't go your way, you're late, there was an accident, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Okay, just keep going and don't let that ruin your trip because I think the personality type that creates these itineraries is walks a fine line of letting a disruption really kind of take away from their experience. And so I think it's very important to sort of harness this philosophy that this is what I want to do. I accept that it might not actually happen, but I'll do whatever I can and be happy with it.
I agree with
There you
that.
go.
And I feel like if you have an itinerary from Blueprint, and then you find that your timing is a little off, and you set your mindset into like being angry about it, like this itinerary doesn't work for me, your whole trip is just going to go to crap,
Right. Yeah.
because that's your
Agreed.
attitude, that's the energy that you're bringing in. And I'm big on the energy that you bring in. For me, last big trip that I had was in Finland in November, all cloudy skies. I was scared that I was not going to see the northern lights, but honestly, I never was bummed or scared that we weren't going to see the northern lights. I was just in the moment, appreciating the cold, the snow, the saunas, the new culture that I was taking in. And then the last 2 days of our stay, boom, they started dancing for us.
Nice. Yeah, these experiences. I almost feel like this is like just life, but like it's sort of like fishing. You go with the hope to catch
Mm-hmm.
fish, but most people aren't angry that they didn't catch fish because you sort of know going into it that you might not, and but you're
Hmm.
just thankful to have the experience. And so travel is sort of the same way. You hope to do all of these things, but sometimes life just dictates otherwise, and you need to be okay with it. And to be able to harness that philosophy is like huge. It's makes the trip exponentially better.
Yeah, love it.
Especially again with someone who's going into it like this with a layout down to the 15-minute increment.
Yeah.
Like you can't get mad, if it's a little late because they do happen. And so I guess sort of giving two different examples. My wife very much likes this type of travel, but Elliot, my partner with the podcast, is not all that into it. So when I travel with him, I change it up a little bit and I sort of figure out what we should do in order of like priority. And we'll try to do everything, but then if for whatever reason we are having a ton of fun doing something, I'm very much willing to just go with the flow and be happy and have fun. And we don't need to necessarily see anything. And so I give way a little bit, depending on the situation and who I'm traveling with. Um,
That's good that you're flexible, though. I feel like
Hmm.
some travelers may not be the ones that are really regimented with their schedule. They're not
mhm.
usually like, oh, okay, whatever. Let's go with the flow now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's why it's called a blueprint because it's not
Hmm.
the final product. It's not like the full plans. It's just maybe like a yeah, rough outline that you're hopeful for. Um, but yeah,
Love
so
it.
so anyway, so writing the itinerary is essentially compiling the information, and the order that I think I recommend doing it in is booking the airfare, so 100% that you're going on this trip. Then I create the map, so I know my route. And I do that
Hmm.
before you book the accommodation. So once you figure out the neighborhood you're going to be spending the time in, where you're going to start and where you're going to end, then I recommend finding an accommodation either at the end or at the beginning, wherever you want. But now you know where you're going to be. I've made the mistake multiple times of booking the accommodation first, only to realize that you are spending time across town and you have to go back and forth. So I do recommend it that
Yeah.
way. Then I do my transportation, and then I do the restaurant reservations if you have them, or tours that you plan on doing. And then I compile confirmation numbers, currency exchange rates, addresses of the places I want to go to. One big tip for Airbnbs or hotels, I Google Street View them and save a picture of it, or
Hmm.
just try to mentally remember it. So when you're walking around in a foreign city and it's a little bit hectic, you remember the facade of the building and you can say, oh yeah, this is the place. It's right next to the coffee shop with the brown doors. I saw it on Google Street View. Here we are. Because addresses aren't always listed as cleanly as they are in the United States. The street names
Yeah.
aren't going to make sense to you. The GPS doesn't might not work as well. So you have all these things, but if you remember the facade of the building or you have a picture of it,
Hmm.
it's very easy. I've used that so many times that it's just so helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Are you hotel or Airbnb usually? What's your preference?
my preference is Airbnb, but I still do both because of the points. I'm a Hilton member, so I,
Mm.
I have a bunch
Hmm.
of Hilton points. My company would send me to travel with Hilton, and so I accumulated a bunch of points that way. I go back and forth. But if you ask me what do I prefer, I'm a big Airbnb person, and this is a topic that Elliot and I actually want to do on the podcast. There's a lot of data now saying that it's actually detrimental to certain neighborhoods because it's raising rent
Mm,
prices, and
Yeah.
landlords
yeah.
are buying these properties and only putting them on Airbnb. They're not giving them to the locals, and so
Yep.
I need to learn more. I'm looking for an expert on this who actually can articulate the data and explain it in a way that's easy to understand and really knows their
Hmm.
stuff. So I'm curious to see where that, yeah, if I
Yeah.
change, because of this.
In my complex that I live in now, they say that if because we have a 12-unit complex, and if you rent one out, it will actually lower the value of all the other complexes
Hmm,
in my area. Yeah, so I
interesting.
thought
Crazy.
that's interesting to hear the other side of it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think one of the other problems with Airbnb are that a lot of foreign investors are buying in tourist destinations. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Europeans, for example, are buying in places like maybe Morocco. So, and then they're finding a local Moroccan to manage their property, but they own the property and they're the ones really
Hmm.
getting the benefits
Yeah.
of that. So yeah, it's. But on the flip side, there's added business, and so that's what I'm really curious to actually sit down with somebody and break it down. But as it stands at this
Yeah.
moment, I'm big with Airbnb. I like Airbnb a lot.
Make sure you link in your Delta account to the Airbnb so you get your Delta Sky Miles points for every dollar you spend.
Oh, I actually don't have Delta. I
Oh,
don't fly Delta.
What?
It's extremely rare for me to book a Delta flight. I don't even know the
mm,
last time that I flew Delta because
Because you're so
wow.
American
yeah,
Airlines.
American
Yeah.
Airlines
Interesting.
dominates the Philadelphia airport, but I might do that just for Airbnb.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and then if you, I don't know how often you use Lyft, but you can connect your
Mm-hmm.
Delta account to Lyft. You can connect it to a few of your restaurant credit accounts too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's quite a few partnerships with Delta that Delta has.
Interesting. I was just going to say, so the last one, I'm just going to sort of spew this
Yeah,
information off and then we could just
for sure.
discuss it. So we sort of compiled safety, local norms, and thoughtful travel into one area. And we use the State Department, US State Department website. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it does give you, if you
Okay.
type in the destination, it will give you travel advisories in the form of terrorism threats, viral outbreaks, potential concerns with your gender or being gay, and then
Hmm.
religious information, which is awesome. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really does give you sort of the preliminary information that you can then research further to see what other people have experienced. There's this awesome website called travelmaps.state.gov.
Hmm.
It's this world map. You click on the country and it immediately gives you a pop-up. It will tell you the travel advisory, when the travel advisory went into effect, and then it also populates with a legend, like consultant or consulate locations, embassy locations, and things like that. It's pretty awesome.
Wow.
We use the CDC website to get
Very cool.
recommendations on vaccines, eating and
Hmm.
drinking recommendations, depending if you're which nation you're going to. Like you might need to avoid certain foods and certain water, and then it also will give
Hmm.
you transportation accidents, and you can get an idea of what the risk is for tourists on certain forms of transportation, which is pretty awesome.
Wow. That's really to the T. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then understanding local norms. This one is
Yeah.
something that is you sort of have to take the lead on it, but common
Hmm.
things are like tipping, hand gestures, restaurant
Yeah.
etiquette are all things that you should look into. And it sort of ties into thoughtful travel, where we push people to spend time understanding the language, learning a few sayings, knowing dress codes before you go, especially if you're
Yeah.
going to more conservative, like Muslim nations, and you want to see
Mm-hmm.
those mosques,
Hmm.
which are beautiful, highly recommend it. But you need to know the dress codes, actually similar to like the Vatican in Rome.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then we like to I guess help people think about how they can make a positive impact on the community, be environmentally conscious while you're traveling. We're
Hmm.
trying to figure out ourselves as we travel how to I don't not be such a consumer. Sort of go there but try to only leave footprints, as they say, take photos and
Hmm.
only leave footprints and not be such a consumer at the destination, but rather just sort of integrate in and see and I don't know, be more mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Do you do the itinerary process after the consultancy service that you guys provide as well? Or
So
is it two separate?
yeah, so we sell the journal planner by itself. We have a video course where Elliot created cartoon versions of us that we essentially explain all the things that I just
Gotta
said.
check that out.
Yeah, in much more detail, and we talk you through. So there's for the 5 courses, and I don't remember who does which, but like you'll get a cartoon version of me, and I'll talk you through how to create your Google My Places map. And then in addition to that, we do offer itinerary services where I'll just write it for you. We'll sit down over Zoom, we'll
Ah,
talk. You'll tell
gotcha.
me how much you want to spend, what you want to do, the type of traveler you are, and I'll come up with an itinerary for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a final question before we wrap up here. What happens, or how do you help someone plan to a place, city, country that you haven't traveled to yourself? You nor Elliot.
It's all research, all through the
Hmm.
process that I just explained. Yeah, so I haven't actually traveled. I'm not one of these people that have been to every country in the world. Or I
Neither
think
are
I'm up
we.
to like I think I'm up to like 15 or 16. So I haven't really explored the world. And it's funny because it puts it in perspective when I talk to my friends at home. They look at me as like this tenured world explorer, but then I talk to somebody who's been to every country and then like
Mm-hmm.
walked across Antarctica, and I feel like I have no travel experiences. So it is all relative, but
Right.
I think my strengths are around the research, are around again understanding how to put a schedule together, and taking people the information people want, and sort of knowing what to do. And if you go to Rome and you know what the attractions are and you know how to move around the city, I think it translates well to other European cities specifically. So like, yeah, it's all comes down to research though.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not
Awesome.
country counters either, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, I'm so mixed on that. I used to like it. Then I was like, no, that's horrible. And now I kind of like the competitive aspect of it, depending on
Mm,
on on like what you're trying to get out of it. Now, if you're just like walking into a
yeah.
country and ticking it off the list, that's a little different. But if it's like because there are these platforms that promote it,
Hmm.
and it's sort of like this competitive
Mm.
adventurer explorer aspect where not only are they pushing people to travel to these countries, but it's like what's the most obscure town you went to in that country, and like which islands. And so I think it's sort of the modern version of the explorer, because so much has already been explored that we're sort of finding new ways to like push the envelope of like this country counting adventurer explorer type of travel. Yeah.
All right. This was so cool. Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about all the other services that Travelers Blueprint offers.
That's pretty much it. So those are the things we focus on. Again, like I'm not like an extremely like I couldn't give you adventure advice. I couldn't tell you how to hike Mount Everest. But if you want to go to Rome, if you want to go to pretty much any city in Europe, in most of Asia, I can help with. I don't know, like Africa is probably beyond most of the countries in Africa are a little bit beyond something that I would feel comfortable giving somebody to do, because
Hmm.
uh, it's just a little bit harder to travel there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we have the podcast. We talk to people like you, Leah. You've been on. We do everything
Mm-hmm.
from travel
Was on too.
logistics to the psychology of the traveler to the actual adventurers that are doing things like climbing the 7 summits and walking across Antarctica. Some of the people I've talked to are they sort of blow my mind. A blind guy who hiked Everest and stuff like that. So we have a very broad spectrum of people on our podcast.
Yeah, yours is incredible. Honestly, it's
Mhm.
actually one of my inspirations for our podcast. Like
Oh,
the
thank
fact
you.
that you guys bring such massive guests on of from every corner of travel. And then just your branding and consistency. I'm just a big fan. So
Mm-hmm.
I've
Really
enjoyed
appreciate
being
that.
on the round tables. I think that's such a cool idea where you bring people from different walks of life on and have them talk about different things. So I'll link the episodes that I've been on.
The first 3 weeks of the month we'll be releasing them, and then the last 1 or 2 weeks we're going to take a break just to help us, family life and stuff like that. We just
Mm-hmm.
needed a little
Yeah.
more time. Yeah,
It is a full-time job to have
it
a
is. It's very demanding.
podcast.
It's demanding. Finding the guest, putting the effort into to get them on the show. It is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Post
Yeah.
production.
Editing is tough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Trisha's our editor.
That's right. Now we will jump into the T2A Q2A, which is the Ticket to Anywhere Quick to Answer segment. We have 3 questions for you, Bob. First one, do you have any rituals or routines when you get to a new place?
Yeah, stick to my itinerary. So I guess, yeah,
That's good.
yeah, yeah. No, I already know what I'm doing, and I just stick with it. Yeah.
There you go. Enough said. All right. Why do you travel?
To meet people, and we have different cultures. I find it fascinating, and I have since I was very little.
Okay. Final question. What's your next trip?
It's a tough one. I believe it is going to be Dia de los Muertos in Oaxaca, Mexico, of
Oh
October
my gosh.
2023. So it's a far ways away, but I
Oh,
have a
far.
newborn right now. So I have a
Yeah.
6-month-old baby,
Oh.
and so
Congrats.
he's gonna come with us. So we need to
Oh.
train him a little bit, and so by October 2023, it'll be Halloween. I believe I'm going to be in Oaxaca, Mexico for Day of the Dead.
That's amazing. We actually were thinking about doing
Oh,
that
wow.
this November, but then we switched our plans to hopefully doing another international trip in November. So maybe
Well,
next year, and
you
I'll
will
get in
be
your
there.
itinerary.
I will be there. Well, so next year, if you want to come, I'll be there. Elliot will be there. Our families will be there. We have a bunch of
Oh, how
friends. People we
I
fun.
met on the
love it.
podcast are coming. It's like a
Group trip.
group trip. Like so. Yeah, definitely. Let us know. I mean, we'll probably
Oh,
Oh,
talk
for
again.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll clear my calendar for
Yeah.
October 2023 also then.
Let's go, Leah.
I'm down.
For sure. All right, before we close off, Bob, let everybody know where they could find you.
Yeah, it's the Traveler's Blueprint on pretty much everything. So it's the Traveler's Blueprint at on Instagram, on Facebook, thetravelersblueprint.com, the Traveler's Blueprint on all the podcast platforms. That's where you'll find us.
All the consultancy, all the journal that we spoke about.
Consultancy's on the website. You can just click through the Traveler's Blueprint at gmail.com if you want to discuss something prior to actually buying anything. And on our Instagram is where we're most active. We do 3 posts a week where one, it's like a cover photo of the guest. We do a little video clip of the guest, and then we get a quote from the podcast. So if you want to just follow and see who we have on a weekly basis, you can get an idea just by following us on Instagram.
Love it. We appreciate your time, Bob. Thank you so much. Congrats to the newest member of your family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Safe travels. See you
Thanks,
next time,
Bob.
Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Ticket to Anywhere podcast. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. If you love travel as much as we do, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Pocket Casts. Thank you all for your support so far. When you have the time, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love to hear your thoughts and feedback, and it'll help others come across our episodes and hopefully be inspired to travel and adventure anywhere.